24 points, 9 assists, 2 steals, and a direct hand in 17 of Indiana's first 19 points. That's what Caitlin Clark dropped in Los Angeles last night, and she did it while going 1 for 7 from 3. No hot shooting night, no favorable whistle, and she still ran the Sparks out of their own building. If she's putting up these numbers when her outside shot isn't falling, what does this team look like when it finally comes back? That's the question that should have every Fever fan locked in right now. She walked back in and reminded everyone exactly who she is, the front runner for Most Valuable Player this year. Why do you think Caitlin will win MVP this year? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
And they talk about wanting to be more aggressively at the point of attack, and that's exactly what LA does.
And welcome back to Los Angeles, Caitlin Clark.
So the defense, but on the other side of the ball, Caitlin Clark is just doing.
And Clark with a steal. Showing off the handle, back the other way. Caitlin Clark for 2 more.
Los Angeles was where it all started for her. May 2024, first road trip of her professional career, and Caitlin Clark walked into the Sparks building as a rookie and walked out with a win. She remembered Klay Thompson sitting courtside, remembered the crowd, remembered hitting the shots that mattered late even after a rough start. She called it one of her first really good memories in this league. So when she came back to that same building on May 13th, it wasn't just another road game on the schedule.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. I feel like you've always talked about how much you love this building, but you've only gotten to play here once.
I know, right?
What does it mean for you to be back here?
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier today, and I think that was like one of my first really good memories in this league, honestly, was that game.
First win.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, first win. One of my first road trips, too, so I didn't play very well in that game, but I made some big shots late in the game, and I just remember the environment being incredible. I remember, like, Klay Thompson was courtside, and there was quite a few big stars in the building for that game, so really fun. Like, this is like whenever I get asked in like interviews and things, like what are some of my favorite places to play, like this is always one that comes to mind, so just super excited.
Before tip-off, Clark sat down at the podium and told you exactly where her head was. She wasn't sentimental about the 2024 trip in a soft way, she was direct about it. She remembered what happened there, she wanted to add to it, and she'd already decided what kind of night it was going to be. That's not a player easing back into things after a long injury stretch. That's a player who spent the offseason with a specific plan.
How has your back been in the following week? And then what have you learned about your body and how to manage it over the last 8-9 months or so?
Yeah, I think first of all, I feel great. So
jump on the table. Right?
Yeah. I think like the hardest part of injury, it's still something I'm really battling and kind of almost struggling with, is just like the mental hump of getting over everything. And like, I understand my body almost too well to a point now, and it's probably something I wasn't enough in touch with before my injuries, and now I understand it very well. And so you just become hyper cautious to certain things. And
she was honest about the injury stuff, which was actually the most interesting part of the press conference. She'd dealt with back tightness serious enough to keep her off the floor for extended stretches, and she admitted that getting over it mentally is harder than the physical recovery. Her exact words: "The hardest part of injury, and still something I'm really battling and kind of almost struggling with, is just like the mental hump of getting over everything." She understands her body almost too well now, she said, which makes her hyper cautious in ways she's actively working through. For a player whose whole game runs on speed and burst, that mental battle is real.
I think that moment in the game where, you know, obviously my back tightened up, I think I almost got confidence from that because I came back in and I played 8 more minutes. And I felt great the last 8 minutes. So I think it's something I can take confidence from, but it's going to take me a little bit to like really get over this mental hurdle of like trusting my body. And I was thinking about it later too. Like, this is the first time I've played 30 minutes. Like, even playing USA basketball, like I was playing 20, 22 minutes. We have so many players, we're just rotating in and out. And I ran 4.6 miles in that game on Saturday versus Dallas. So it's a lot of stress on somebody's body.
But the physical side of it, she felt good. Playing 30 minutes against Dallas in the previous game was the first time she'd hit that number in a long time, longer even than her USA basketball appearances, and she ran 4.6 miles in that game. Her speed and burst felt back. She described playing extended minutes as genuinely comfortable, not something she's managing around anymore, and coach Stephanie White confirmed there were no minutes restrictions heading into LA. That's a different situation than anything she dealt with in 2025.
just the pace and the physicality of it too. So that's something I'm going to continue to get used to, but I feel really good. It's just continuing to work on the mental side of the injuries for myself.
She also dropped something before the game that nobody saw coming. She was wearing new Kobe player exclusive shoes she'd been using in practice, and she told the room these were the last Kobe that will go to market for people before my signature shoe comes out. Her own signature shoe. In an arena built around Laker legends, wearing the last Kobe to ever hit shelves before her own shoe launches. And she mentioned Monique Billings by name when talking about team chemistry, specifically calling out how their connection in practice had been building faster than she expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a great locker room and great leadership and people that use their voices and are going to help each other out, and, you know, people that have been in this league a long time and people that have been really successful in this league. So, you know, Coach Steph has really challenged us. Like, you know, obviously she's the coach and the coaching staff, and they're going to give us the scouting report and the things we need to do. But at the end of the day, this is our team. Like, we have to make this what we want, you know, what we want to be. And
the first quarter didn't ease anybody in. Clark touched the ball and Indiana started scoring, and the Sparks basically couldn't do anything about it for the first several minutes. 17 of Indiana's first 19 points ran through her somehow, whether she was finishing at the rim herself or finding an open teammate before LA's defense could recover. And none of it came from three-point shooting, because she went 1 for 7 from deep on the night. She built that stat line a completely different way.
At her 116th career double-double in that loss to the Aces here on Sunday. Did Nneka. Clark with a step. Nice pass from Billings.
Taken over here in this first quarter, figuring out ways to help her teammates.
And Burrell has it partially blocked by Clark. Back and forth we go. 1 point LA lead so far. Mitchell on the back cut. My goodness.
The paint was where she lived in this game. Clark converted 8 of her 10 two-point attempts, which is 80% shooting inside the arc, and that number tells you something real about where her body actually is right now. She said it herself after the game. My speed and my burst is back, and that helps me get downhill. That's not a small thing after the kind of lower body injury stretch she's been through. Extended time off affects the base of a jump shot, the lift, the consistency of the release, so the three-point shot catching up to the rest of her game takes longer than people want to admit. She's not waiting for it to come back. She's attacking every other way she can while it does.
She is so good at sharing the ball. She makes her teammates better, but look at the beautiful pass there in. When they get the rebound, she gets down court calling for the ball.
Clark finding Cunningham on the back cut because, as you mentioned, all that attention on Caitlin Clark.
But a really smart play by her right there to keep this one alive.
And the Fever contingent in the house, happy about that, and happy about that too. Nice look to Clark for 2.
The assists were the other part of this. 9 by halftime, and one of them was the kind of pass that gets clipped and posted for weeks, threading the ball through 3 Sparks defenders to find Kelsey Mitchell cutting for a layup. The team called it their assist of the game, and it wasn't close. Clark was reading LA's defense and finding the gaps before the Sparks had even finished setting up, which is how you run up 17 of 19 points without relying on your jump shot at all. She also connected with Sophie Cunningham for a 3 when the Sparks closed out too hard on Mitchell, and every one of those decisions came fast, with no hesitation. When defenses collapsed on her drives, her approach was to spray it out to open shooters, and she felt like she executed that well in the first half. Indiana went into halftime up 48-34 because of it.
Yeah, Nneka needs to take more shots. She's only attempted 4 shots in this one.
Clark with a step, lays it up and in. Especially as we were just talking about how well the Fever offense is flowing, and Atkins such a key piece of this Sparks retooled defense. Caitlin Clark off the window for 2. In that close defeat to Dallas on Saturday. Great inbounds play to Harris.
Then there was the defensive end, which doesn't get enough attention when Clark is putting up offensive numbers like this. She recorded 2 steals and had 2 additional deflections that directly forced Sparks turnovers, and they weren't random scramble plays. Each one came at a moment when LA was trying to string something together. Clark reading a passing lane, getting her hand on the ball, and turning it into Indiana offense before the Sparks could get set. She played 31 minutes total, and the Sparks rotated multiple lineups at her without ever finding a consistent answer. Kelsey Mitchell didn't wait for the Sparks to figure out a plan. She came out aggressive, hitting 3-pointers early, forcing LA's defense to stretch out and cover ground they didn't want to cover, and that opened up exactly the driving lanes Clark was attacking all night long. Mitchell dropped 17 points in the first half alone, finishing with 23 on 9 of 17 shooting, and the Sparks spent the whole game trying to solve two problems at once, without ever really solving either one.
Points in the first 2 minutes. Has not scored since. Maybe that'll change on this trip down. Mitchell with another three. Kelsey into double digits.
The second quarter was where Mitchell basically broke the game open. She went 7 of 9 from the field in that quarter, knocking down all 3 of her three-point attempts during a 19-8 run that pushed Indiana's lead to a point where LA was chasing the whole second half. When a defense has to respect a shooter sitting out on the perimeter, the paint opens up and Clark's downhill game becomes nearly impossible to contain. Mitchell wasn't lucky in that quarter. She was locked in. Then there's Monique Billings, playing her first regular season game in a Fever uniform in her hometown of Los Angeles, and she looked like she'd been running this offense for 2 years already. 9 points and 8 rebounds in 27 minutes is a solid debut box score, but the chemistry with Clark was the more interesting thing to watch. Clark found Billings in spots where Billings had to trust where the ball was going before she'd even fully set her feet, and Billings delivered every time. One of the things that stood out was Billings immediately handing the ball to Clark after pulling down a rebound rather than trying to push the pace herself, which sounds small but tells you a lot about how quickly she understood her role. That kind of instinct doesn't usually show up in Game 1.
Saturday in the loss to Dallas. More good ball movement. Billings with a bucket from the corner. Welcome back to SoCal.
You mentioned it, Kate. It was
Aaliyah Boston fouled out late in the fourth, and she'd already been on a minutes restriction coming in. So the Billings debut mattered even more in that context because Indiana needs front court depth they can count on when Boston's not available. Billings answered that question directly on night 1.
Swatted by Boston. That is a welcome to the WNBA moment there.
Sophie Cunningham's 12 points and 7 rebounds fit into the game plan in a specific way. She was the player Clark found when the Sparks overcommitted on Mitchell, hitting timely threes and cutting for layups at exactly the right moments. And her rebounding kept possessions alive on both ends when Indiana needed stops.
Between those lines, and it's something she takes a lot of pride in.
And on cue, Cunningham pulls and connects from outside. A 12 and counting tonight.
The Sparks did put together an 11-3 run late to make it feel close for a few minutes, with Kelsey Plum finishing at 25, De'Arica Hamby adding 16 on 6 of 8 shooting, and Cameron Brink coming off the bench for 11. Indiana didn't panic. Clark and Mitchell kept making plays, Billings cleaned up inside, and LA never got close enough to actually threaten the lead.
It's Will McKay with 5, a little disjointed on this possession, and Billings comes away with it. Clark down to Billings. Use and ahs from the crowd. What great ball!
The technical foul came right before the halftime horn, and it had no business being called in a game that physical. Clark drove, felt contact, and when the referee Jason Alabanza called an offensive foul on her instead, she lost it a little, yelling and clapping at him on the way to the locker room. The technical followed when she kept going. Kelsey Mitchell had to shoot the resulting free throw to open the third quarter, which is just a wild way to start a half.
We'll do it for our first half here at Crypto.com Arena. Between the Sparks, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever. Clark with 11 to go along with.
Clark didn't dodge the question after the game, but she also didn't blow it up into a bigger deal than she wanted it to be. White, though, was pointed about it. She said the game felt a lot like last year to me, and that's not where we want to be, specifically calling out the league's supposed freedom of movement emphasis and saying flat out, it was not tonight. That's a coach who's watched her player drive into contact all game, absorb hits that didn't get called, and then pick up a technical for reacting to an inconsistent whistle. White didn't pretend that was fine.
I was just gonna say I deserve my technical. I'm so bad.
All right. No, they don't need any fines.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think, look, you know, the reality is a lot of us spend a lot of time in the off season, on various committees, trying to remedy this officiating thing. And you know what we said was that we wanted everything called. Freedom of movement needs to be a thing, and it was not tonight.
And it's not a one-game thing. Clark's been dealing with this conversation since her rookie year, where every reaction she has on the floor gets looked at harder than most players ever experience. A technical on a night when she's playing some of her best basketball is genuinely frustrating, and the contact the Sparks were putting on her every time she drove deserved more calls than it got. But Indiana still won by double digits, and Clark still finished with 24-9. So whatever frustration she carried into that locker room at halftime, she didn't let it touch her performance. After the game, she was clear about how she stays useful even when her shot's not falling. She said, "The best thing I can do for this team is play make. I can score the ball, I can make threes, but what I can do best for this team is make plays for my teammates. And I know that." She talked about getting downhill, finishing around the rim, drawing fouls, and spraying it out to open shooters when the defense collapses. That's not a player making excuses for going 1 for 7 from 3. That's a player who already figured out how to win without it.
Yeah, well, obviously I've only made 1 3 tonight, but like I haven't let that affect me. I obviously haven't shot the ball as well as I would have liked the first 2 games, but my shot feels great and I feel like it's right there, but I haven't let that bother my mind through these first 2 games. And you know, the best thing I can do for this team is play make. Like at the end of the day, I can score the ball, I can make threes, but what I can do best for this team is make plays for my teammates, and I know that. And you know, getting my feet in the paint, spraying it to my teammates.
That's also what makes the MVP conversation real. A Clark who needs her outside shot to put up a great game is already dangerous. A Clark who puts up 24-9 while going 1 for 7 from 3, getting steals, forcing turnovers, and running the offense at that level, that's a different problem for every coaching staff in the league. White also pointed out that transition defense surrendered 11 fast break points and ball screen coverage needs work, so Indiana's not finished building yet. She went 1 for 7 from 3, took a technical she didn't deserve, and still walked out of Los Angeles with 24 points, 9 assists, and a first regular season win in nearly a full year. Her three-point shot will come back, her body's already moving faster than it has in over a year, and the Sparks couldn't stop her even on her worst shooting night. Mitchell scored 23. Billings debuted with 9 and 8 and looked like she'd been here forever. Cunningham gave you 12 and 7, and Clark still ended up as the best player in the building. Indiana's next game is Friday at home against the Washington Mystics, and this team is getting sharper. Why do you think Caitlin will win MVP this year? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss out on all the WNBA news. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.